Welcome to Chaos in the Lobby. Today, my guest is Felipe, aka Harvester, who is, of course, the creator of Kerbal Space Program, one of the highest rated games on Steam of all time with an astonishing 95% overall positive rating, something that very few games have managed to accomplish. He now has a new game out called KitHack, where you build, fly, drive, and sail your own model planes, cars, and ships, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in here in a moment. Finally, he has even more recently joined Rocketworks to create Kitten Spage Agency, which is the spiritual successor to Kerbal's space program, which he himself created. So, Harvester, welcome and thank you.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's surreal. Like to hear you say all of those things. Um, yeah, it's just it's insane.
And of course, you created Kerbal Space Program while working at Squad, which was a marketing company, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah,
Uh,
it was. And that was I guess part of how we got into that situation. Um, well, long story short, I hate marketing very much. I still do. And I like I had graduated just out of college. I majored in game design. And I had just moved to Mexico. And Also, just for I guess for context, I'm originally from Brazil. Um, I studied there and I graduated, and I moved up here to Mexico to be with my girlfriend, now wife, who had moved here with her family. So we came up with this whole plan that I would move up and so that we would live here. And um, and yeah, both like in Brazil and here in Mexico, like graduating in game design, like chances were pretty low that you would going to get yourself into the games industry. Like there are very, very few game studios in Latin America, and so I was at that point, I was just like happy, I guess, to find anything that was even like game adjacent.
yeah.
And at Squad, they were doing these like interactive installation things and stuff, like the kind of stuff that you would see like put up at the mall, where there's like an interactive, like um, not quite a game, but kind of like a um, thing, I
Yeah.
guess, an experience type thing where there would be a screen or something, and you can like interact with stuff. And they were looking for somebody to do like 3D renderings and some development, I guess. And I joined for that, and um, I was doing that for a while, but it was just it was killing me. Like the whole marketing vibe, like the marketing, everything is for yesterday. There's this sense of like insane urgency for some reason, and it's just part of how it is. And like it was like I was really miserable, and
Yeah.
the projects just kept coming, and there wasn't a moment to even catch a breath. You were like out of one project that was like you had to pull an all-nighter like on site to rig up cabling and stuff. Next day, you're already like coding for the next one, that was like really wearing me down. And it got to a point where I said, like, oh, this is like not what I want to be doing. And I walked in to quit and say, like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm going to go look for something more like in games and we'll see how that goes. And they still had like a bunch of other projects lined up. And by that point, it was one of the only developers. And they were relying on me to like put a bunch of stuff together. And they were like, no, 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 you can't quit. Like if you stay, we'll let you make your game here.
Oh, so
I
they
was
already
like,
knew that you had kind of been working or thinking about Kerbal Space Program.
yeah, I think I never shut up about it really.
Okay.
You can't really turn that off. But like, it wasn't that I was pitching KSP itself for a really long time. They just knew that I wanted to make games, and they said, "Well, we'll give you the opportunity to try and make your game here, and then
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes." And I was like, "Okay, I don't buy it. Like that doesn't happen. Like I don't believe you." But I mean, it's that or being unemployed and looking for a job. And then chances are, if I join a studio, like who's ever gonna let me make a game like
Right.
on my own, like just fresh from like fresh face, like with a game idea. Um, so I I thought like, well, I don't. There's not a lot to lose here, so let's see how far we can go with this. And
Was it
I
full
pitched
time
it.
at first, or were you kind of half to still doing the marketing stuff and half doing Kerbal
Well,
Space Program?
initially, like last month or so, I think I was finishing up a project and already starting to like think about it. But when I once I got started, I got full time into it, which
Okay.
was yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, it could have gone much worse. If I'm one of those people who really can't like multi. I'm not a multi-threaded brain.
Yeah,
I can do one thing specifically at any one time, and
I
then
can relate.
yeah. But then so yeah, that was it could have gone worse. But so that's when how it started, and I started like given like this backstory, like I was fully like thinking that I'm gonna get maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 months of this tops until they say, okay, like playtime's over, like we've got a bunch of other marketing projects. Um, so I started working on the game in with this kind of mindset of thinking like they're gonna pull the plug on me tomorrow for all I know. So how can I make something that by the time the time runs out, like I have something to show for it.
Yeah.
So it started off as this very simple, like very unambitious little thing. Um, Initially, it was even going to be a 2D game, right?
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, I actually pitched it initially as a game that we would make in Flash.
Okay.
My background is, yeah, I'm old. I realize that now. But I started with Flash for better or worse, and um, that's what I was comfortable with back then. And I suggested like let's do it in Flash first, and then like if there's interest that we could do a 3D version in Unity or something.
Yeah.
And they said like, well, if we're gonna do it in Unity later, why not start it in Unity now? And I said, oh, well, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll do it in like 2.5D for now. Like we'll like use 3D models and there's a 3D world, but we'll constrain the plane to like up, down, left, right. And I felt that that was like a decent compromise of complexity because um, in 2D, like all of Celestial Dynamics really is like a lot simpler because you have fewer um, ways to mess it up. I guess you don't need to worry about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess I got the better of me in that way because my inner nerd won because as I was working with it about 5 months in, I couldn't help myself but wonder like if I move these keys around here and you control the throttle with control and shift, that frees up W and S for
Yeah.
pitch. And then you could just pitch over like that way instead of just being constrained to the plane. So what if I release the plane? Like everything else is already 3D.
Right.
Why not? Let's see what how that feels. And I did that, and it was actually like super fun to just fly around in 3D. And well, nobody had any other complaints, so that's how I kind of stayed. And I just said, like, we'll see how it goes. Like, we'll trust the players to like rise to the challenge if it really is that difficult. Um,
Yeah.
and
So your own kind of version of personal feature creep, kind of.
pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. Like you could say that like most of what came into KSP was feature creep, at least initially. Like the early version was super early, but it was kind of like it had to be that way, right? Because we didn't know how long we had to run with this until they pulled the plug. And
Yeah.
up until then, I was fully expecting that to come any day because we made it like 6 months uh, of development, like before we released the first public version. And then that went on as a free game that you could just download and play um, for the rest of that year. I think we only set it up so there was a full paid version, like much later. Like I guess after we were already a year into the project, and it just kind of evolved organically. In that way, we were just kind of like shunted into like how it became because it was like nobody knew what they were doing. Like none of us knew what we were doing, and I still like have this feeling that like I have these big knowledge gaps, I guess, from never having a proper like games industry job because that's never been a thing for me. Like I went from um, what was it? Like I was doing content development for like marketing stuff to lead developer on an indie game. So like there is no like that's not normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of happened that way. So there were a lot of like really hard lessons also in the process because I learned firsthand like why Git is better than SVN and why having branches is important. I
Yep.
learned why having a small testing team to like get early access to your builds to tell you of bugs is important versus just sending up a new build to everybody. Um, and I learned how why like having like a deployment pipeline is important, like for you to press as few buttons as possible to send up a build that people can download because I used to have a checklist. I was packaging in the first versions of the game. I was packaging zip files by hand and just
Oh,
making sure that everything was kind of there.
yeah.
And like it's fine if you do it once, twice, maybe three times. By the 10th time, you definitely have missed a couple of steps already.
Right.
So I
I
was
think a lot
getting
of
like,
people maybe don't realize also the extent to which these things now have a toolkit available. Like Unity,
oh yeah,
especially in like 2010, 2011, was it
oh
wasn't
there was
brand new,
no
but it was
such thing.
relatively,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like you didn't have things like now you have like cloud solutions where you configure the actions and all of that, and you just like press a button and the backend, like the whole service thing does it, a lot of it for you. But we didn't have any of that. And um, I mean, it is true, admittedly, that we ended up overbuilding and making this god awful contraption that did the deployment for the of the game for us in some pretty nasty ways, probably because we didn't really know what we were doing. The second time around with KitHack, it wasn't the same like apocalyptic, glorious system as some people called it. It was a much more boring set of scripts that I just had on my computer. But it's super important because you need to be able to press a button and then have the game up in 5 minutes, like updated and ready for people to get access to. And but yeah, it was really rough going at first. We didn't have a way to like keep track of versions properly. So like people would say there's a bug and they would be like reporting about the wrong version and there would be already a fix for that bug in the next version and they didn't know about it. So like all of that stuff I had to learn like just in the hardest possible way over the very many updates that we were doing. But I think that was kind of I think it was kind of part of it, to be honest, because if I had known just how difficult and how stressful KSP was going to be before I started it, like nobody would have said yes to that. Like nobody would have agreed to make a 5 year game project that um, is that complicated, that
yeah,
ambitious, like knowing ahead of time what's coming. So I think that was part of the process. Like part of what made it possible was that it's that thing, right? What people
yeah,
say we do this not because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
yeah,
Yeah, that was definitely a part of the process. But it was interesting because like apart from it being like extremely difficult and stressful like that, like we were never short of like good suggestions and good ideas on how to make it better because the community kept flooding us with cool and interesting uh, new knowledge and new ideas. So it was like this kind of like symbiosis type thing, like this kind of relationship where the community, like they were ahead of us in a lot of stuff most of the time because it got to a point where like most features that we could work on were already done in some way or another via mods. So you get to a point where like you have this balance going on, like this ecosystem, and as a developer, you have to go more into like um, you have to reconsider like what is worth doing given that this is already possible to do with a mod
yeah.
versus like but the mod is inherently something that people need to know about and like install and I would think that the vast majority of players don't actually use mods even in games that have extremely active modding communities like I would think that at least half of players, even of the most like mod friendly games, still don't use mods. We just don't really
Oh,
hear
really?
about them because I think yeah, it's kind of like how much of a percentage of the players are on the forums
Okay. Yeah, that's
versus
true.
how many are just playing silently and you never hear about them. Um, so I think that like that kind of filtering also happens for other stuff like mods, because the mods happen through the community. So if you're not part of the community, like being into modding a game is almost like out of reach in a way because you kind of have to expose yourself to that. Um, to be honest, I don't really have much like hard data on this, but it's a really interesting thing to think about. So
Well, it was
um,
new, like you said. I mean,
yeah, and
between
it was
Minecraft and Kerbal Space Program, I think those were the first games I really got into
mhm.
kind of over modding a game that I was playing, seeing how much I could put into it. I remember playing like Unreal Tournament, and there were some
Mhm.
mods for Unreal Tournament, but
Yeah,
getting them to work was a whole other task. And
right.
nowadays, you've got like Space Engineers and RimWorld, and there's tools for that. But like you said, those things didn't exist at
Yeah,
the time.
I think that when KSP was starting, like, well, we weren't on Steam, so it wasn't an option even then. But like, um, I don't know if the Steam Workshop was around even. Like the whole idea of
Right.
user-generated content like that was pretty new and niche. But to me, like, I started playing my like early games were like SimCity and Microsoft Flight Simulator, like
Yeah.
way back in the 90s. I've had every Microsoft Flight Simulator since version 4,
Oh wow.
which was ran on DOS, came in a
Yep.
single 3.5 floppy. And yeah, I'm old. Have I mentioned that? But I started with Flight Simulator, not necessarily like people would argue that that's not even a game in a way. And I used to have that discussion in college, even with professors, about like what is a game. Like SimCity and Flight Sim almost don't qualify because they're open ended and they don't have like you don't beat them in
Right.
a
There's
way
no
like
clear
you
missions. Yeah.
like you don't have like yeah you don't have missions and objectives and then the credits roll at after you beat the final boss like um and I used to say like well those are still games because you can play them and they would argue back that that's really just like a software toy instead.
Yeah.
But I think like the way I think about games comes from that, like from that early background of playing with games and wishing they would never end.
Yeah.
Like it still kind of sucks to go through the credits,
It does.
because you get the sense of finality that you're done with it, that there's nothing more to do. Even if there is more to do, like you could still have like loads of side quests and other stuff to do, but the credits have rolled. Like, why would you?
Yeah. You saw
You
the
have,
ending. Yeah.
yeah, like that was the ending. Even if there are multiple endings, even you have to, I don't know, there's a level of like, you have to detach yourself from the game in a way to like be able to replay it like that. That
Yeah.
kind of breaks the immersion if you're in there. And I don't know, I kind of avoid going into areas that I know are gonna take me to an end screen in pretty much any game because I just want to keep playing.
Yeah.
Um,
I do the same
yeah.
thing. And when I was talking with Nate, he and I discussed that the games are very much a medium of art, in my opinion. And you're kind of
Mhm.
interacting with it. And when it ends, like you said, it kind of breaks your heart a little bit. But there's always that nostalgia.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It kind of exactly. It breaks your heart a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I felt that a lot, like with very open-ended games like The Witcher and Cyberpunk and Skyrim and stuff. Like those kinds of games, like that, really like transport you to that world and have you like fully immersed there. Like it kind of is a bummer to see credits roll by because then like what the world evaporates around you. It's like the end of a really nice, really long novel, or something. Like you have
Yeah.
this sense of like loss almost that it's ended now. And like, I mean, you can go back, but it's not the same run anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's always been the way I've thought about games. And I think that like the design of KSP probably inherited a lot of that thinking. I don't know how much of it was on purpose versus just, subconscious decisions, I guess, but I would probably always pick the stuff that would let you just keep on playing
Yeah.
and have the game like branch out in front of you as much as possible and never really put a hard stop to what you were doing. There is no end game other than like the moment you decide that, you know what, like I've done pretty much everything I can do here. and I'm getting kind of bored, and then you move on. And that's fine. I think that like the credits fit in just fine as a button on the main menu. You don't
Yeah.
need to like have a cutscene in game that triggers them.
And those are the games that you can go back to. Like, and you definitely achieved that with
Yeah.
Kerbal because I mean, I still go back and play Kerbal. I start a fresh wipe, start a fresh science career, do whatever and I sometimes leave it for 6 months, sometimes it's a week. But it is one of my most played games and it's one I just keep coming back to. So you definitely nailed that open-ended, no finality. And it does kind of recapture that magic when you have that ability to go back and do it differently.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I mean, it just I guess validates what I
Yeah.
was hoping that it would do. Um, and
But
yeah,
when did
mhm.
Squad kind of realize that the game had kind of achieved that? When did Squad realize, oh, this is maybe the direction the entire company should be taking?
That's a really great question, actually. I don't know if they ever did,
Okay.
to be totally honest. Like that was the weird thing. That was part of the reason why it kind of ended the way it did. Like it was always a very tough place to work at. Like it was
Okay.
never a very relaxed job, like even on the best of days. That whole like feeling of everything is for yesterday from marketing never went away. And at first I could understand it because like I was going like into this project, and they were basically putting money into that and not seeing a return. But then after a while, it was clear that the game had already like more than paid for itself, like many times over. So I started questioning like why are we never slowing down? Like why do we never like take a break or a vacation or something like that and just like um,
Enjoy the moment. Yeah.
enjoy like that we don't need to be at rushing anymore like this. It just wasn't part of how they operated. I don't know. They were always rushing. There was always something on fire, and everything was like urgent. And it started to wear us down like a lot. Um, and by this point, the team was pretty large already, and like, but the game was profitable. The game was making more than enough to pay for itself. It was by any measure considered a wild success. I think I'm fairly sure we never checked this, but I'm fairly convinced that like at the height of KSP um, development, like around 2014, 15, we were by far the largest game studio in all of Latin America
Oh, wow.
without having ever like declared ourselves as being one. But because like no other game like that I could think of, or no other studio was having um, had a game at that scale. It was like, and even today, like the scale of KSP is staggering to me. It's something that the longer I looked at it from the outside after having left, the more I was impressed by it. I just the other day I learned that like the KSP subreddit is on the top 1%.
Oh, really?
So one of the top 100 largest subreddits in all of Reddit,
Oh, I didn't realize
which
that. I
is
knew it was big, but I didn't realize that. Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I don't. There's when I just say like there's no neural pathway in the human brain to process like something you've done having that level of magnitude.
Yeah.
It's like when the Jebediah plushie went up to the space station on Starliner.
Oh,
Um, like that
I'm
was
sure that
like
was really cool. Yeah.
that was absolutely surreal to me.
Yeah.
Like that was like how do you even process that kind of information?
Right.
Right? Like, how do you like not come off as like a total like douchebag of arrogance after that? So, I don't know. It's just it's surreal. Um, and like, and I don't know. I think that that was kind of like the biggest like tragedy of the whole thing is that like I was seeing that, and the other developers were seeing that, and everybody was super happy and excited to work in it, but as far as the company, like they didn't seem to. I don't know if it was that they didn't understand how it all worked, how like what made it as a game be successful, or what made games tick in general, because they weren't gamers, right? They were in marketing. So I was the first one there to say, "Hey, let's do games." Um, And like everybody that came in to work on KSP was a gamer, I think, by default, but they weren't. So I still think that they might have not even realized what it was that they had, especially in terms of like how rare a success case like that is.
Yeah, and it
Because
is extremely rare. I think
yeah,
there
it's
was something like 3,000 entries into the Next Fest over the summer. I mean, I
yeah, no, yeah. If you look at the numbers these days, like on how many games actually go out on Steam, I mean,
yeah.
back then, like 12, 13 years ago, it wasn't this populated. Like to get a game on Steam, you had to actually sign a deal like manually with Valve,
Oh,
and they
really?
had to approve the game. And yeah, there was no green light, there was no Steam Direct, anything like that back then. We actually got really lucky because we were about to go on Steam. They had signed the agreement and all, um, and we were about to go on the store. Just 1 month before we were set to go live, this other game, there was a zombie game that was a big scandal about how unfinished it was, and that it was so bad that Steam actually delisted it from the store, which is, it was a different world, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
To hear of Steam delisting a game these days. But they delisted the game just because it was so incomplete, and we were super concerned because our game was super incomplete. Like this was early KSP, around version like 16 or so. There was a lot that wasn't there yet, and we were like, I was pretty terrified of having like a very hostile reception. We knew that like the players that we had chosen to join the community and heard about the game in this very organic way that attracted them in the most like positive way possible, where like their level of interest in the subject like just managed to land them at finding this game at just the right time. So you get
Yeah.
this kind of like natural filtering of players that have like less patience with a game that's unfinished and expect games to be much more highly polished and stuff. And going on Steam would mean we were putting the game in front of hundreds of thousands or millions of players who maybe had a lot less patience and would be a lot less forgiving. So we were pretty concerned. I was, at least. And then
That's fair. Yeah.
Valve actually held us back from going live after that zombie game thing and said, guys, hold on a couple of months. We're working on a new thing.
Okay.
And 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 that was the early access category,
I'm
actually.
guessing
That,
there's
that
the
was the
start of
early access
Greenlight.
program. We got lucky enough to be one of the first 12 games in early access on Steam.
Oh,
It was
wow.
us, Prison Architect, a bunch of others that I just remember Prison Architect was there with us. But I think we were extremely fortunate there of that happening when it happened, because I'm pretty certain that today, if we had released KSP just direct to Steam, as uh, everybody tends to do now, as it was, like on the first versions, we would have been review bombed out of existence in a matter of weeks,
Really?
or more likely not even acknowledged, and it would have just fizzled out into uh, invisibility, which is like the sad end that most games end up meeting, is that they just become invisible,
Yeah.
and people don't even know they're there. Um,
And there's
and
so
yeah,
many now that yeah, I mean, it's easier and easier to get
mhm,
lost in that noise. Yeah.
pretty much, yeah. So, so yeah, I don't really have a point with that. It's really
Oh,
just a very
it was
that's the
really interesting to hear
situation.
about that. Yeah, all that. So you left Squad in, I think, 2015 or 2016.
2016 was when I left. Everybody kind of started like we started talking with. Sorry, yeah, I got distracted. I got
Oh,
off
no
on a
worries.
tangent. I do that a lot.
Oh, please
But
do. Yeah.
we started talking just with one another and comparing experiences and stuff, and realizing that like, hey, like some of the others had worked in other studios before, and so like it's never been like this rushed, like this intense, and like we shouldn't be feeling these levels of stress with um, with a successful game.
Yeah.
Um, and but it never stopped, and it never like let up. And like it's not that we were also like making like very, very good amounts of money either. Like we were like it was this was a, a small software company in Mexico, so I was making that level of wages even to the very end. I had a small share, I guess, in the a small profit share because I had pitched the idea. But
Yeah.
even that was uh, like very hard thing um, to have followed through.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like they resented me for even having that like ever since the
Really?
beginning. Yeah, it was a really weird thing. Like that relationship of me and the squad bosses and well, I guess everybody else with them also like everybody got this really weird vibe of them being like and I don't know, it just felt like they were doing something wrong, even if
Yeah.
they weren't. Like they just gave off that vibe of like, I don't know what, but this feels kind of dodgy.
Yeah.
And I thought it was normal because I mean that was my first job out of college. I didn't have a frame of reference to compare anything to, and then uh, that might have been part of the reason why I was able to continue there for as long as I did because everybody else was also like ready to walk away.
Okay.
And like to me, it was a really, really hard thing. It was like the hardest decision I've ever had to make, and it's still something that is kind of hard to talk about because it was walking away from my baby.
Yeah.
Like I had to do that because not only the working conditions were so hard, and we weren't like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. We were just seeing that like it was just going to keep on at that pace forever,
Right.
with no reward and no um, moment to rest. Um, but also like there weren't any other plans for like a second game either. Like they didn't have any intention of saying like, well, we've made this very successful thing. Like let's try to make another one.
Yeah. Let's get
And I
started
had
on two.
already
Yeah.
been, yeah, and I had already been pitching that. Like I'd already been pitching in other games beyond
Really?
KSP.
Yeah. I
And
remember
yeah,
you,
I have
I
this
saw something that you said that there were other ideas for like
yeah.
different, not necessarily space travel, but just different types of vehicle constructions for Kerbals or,
Yeah, I wanted to make this other game that was Kerbal Aviation. I even posted a piece of concept art that I did about it that I actually signed in 2013. So this was like well before KSP hit 1.0. I was already thinking about like what we could do next,
yeah.
but that never went anywhere. There was no, they didn't have any intention of starting a new one,
Hmm.
which, like to this day, it's feels unexplainable to me. Like, why
Yeah. That is
wouldn't
confusing.
they?
Why wouldn't you expand on this? Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I if it had been up to me, like I would have been perfectly fine still working at Squad with my little minority share in it, because I was in it to make the game, and I was perfectly happy with like having a minority stake in it, provided that like I didn't have to also be running the company.
Yeah.
Like that to me was worth it because that was a dream job to me. I didn't have to be like to own the company to consider that I was doing like what I've always wanted to do. Uh, and it would have been totally, it's a weird part. It would have been less work for them to just say, we're going to retire now. Like, have fun running your game studio. Like, you can make other games or do whatever you want at that point because it got to that point where they could retire.
Yeah.
Um, but they
I'm
didn't do
surprised that
that.
they didn't give you kind of the green light to do. I mean, at this point, now that they saw your idea and that it was very successful, I'm kind of surprised they didn't say, "Hey, whatever you want to do next, go ahead."
I mean, I would have hoped that that was the case also, but like that was surprisingly like it was the exact opposite.
Yeah,
It seemed that they were determined to like I don't know reconstruct the situation in such a way where I was just another employee
yeah.
instead of having had anything to do with the origin of this wild success that they had. Um, and
And
it just
maybe
felt
that was
weird.
a big part of it is that they, you know,
Yeah, it's just really hard for me to justify like why they would have wanted to do something like that. And but another thing that we knew for sure was that like if they just wanted to like squeeze every drop of juice out of what they had, and until it ran dry. And so that basically implied that if we keep working here at Squad, our newly found game developer careers are gonna end uh, just as they started. Like they're gonna fizzle out with like all within the life cycle of this one game. Um, so if we want to have any chance of like actually like being game developers, we're gonna have to leave. And this was a conversation that I was having with everybody else on the team, like all 8 of us that were like the core team working in KSP at the time. Um, we were getting together and having these like secret conversations out of the company chat.
Yeah.
So, and just like kind of like planning this kind of moment of rebellion, I guess, which was really just uh, quitting our
Yeah.
jobs actually, because it got to that point where it just felt impossible. And yeah, and then this was just around the time that I was uh, reaching like the 5 year mark of my contract with Squad. And just at the same time, it just so happened that they made it clear that they weren't going to renew me either. Like I was going to
Oh,
lose even my small share in
wow.
KSP. They were going to really put me back down to just working for.
I mean, that's kind of shocking, really. I mean,
I have no explanation for that. I don't think I ever did anything
no.
to be treated like that. I just worked to my best capacity as hard as I could
Well, and I can't
on
blame,
the
I don't think
game.
anybody could blame you for feeling disrespected
But
in
I
that
felt
situation.
like this. I don't think I was the only one, but like I can't speak for the others. But personally, I felt that they were after me, like for some reason, that they had something against me that was so strong, like so. Um, they had such hatred towards me for
Mm,
some reason that they wanted to make sure that I got off, like I was removed from the project as much as possible and just like cast aside. And that's something that I could never actually say in public before because my my farewell message for KSP from the KSP community when I left was heavily curated. Like, it had to be approved by them
really?
under the kind of implied condition that they still had to. I still was owed, I guess, some part of my minority share in the game, and was kind of implied that if I just left and burned my bridges and stuff and just said everything, they would just not pay me. So they
Really?
had that over me. So if I wanted to like continue my career and like have enough to actually like start my own company and do that um, and try to like have a go at it on my own, I needed to um, like
Play ball. Yeah.
play ball a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the situation. It was that was the hardest part because I was never really able to tell like what really happened.
Yeah.
That like the conditions inside squad were already like to such a degree of like I don't know what to call it. It's not that it was openly hostile, but nobody felt very
I
much
mean,
at ease.
that sounds kind of openly hostile. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe I just don't have a frame of
Maybe not
reference.
overtly, I guess, but yeah, I mean,
Um, yeah, I mean,
to say,
I
hey,
would
like, we're
never
not going to
go like
pay you unless you
yelled
play
at
ball. Yeah.
like openly. Others did. Like other people at squad did get yelled at openly, like and
Wow.
verbally attacked. But I guess I didn't. I wasn't like maybe it wasn't just me. Maybe it was just like that with everybody. But
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm sorry you had
it,
to go through that. That's a
it
real
was
shame.
it sucked. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it
it
could
sounds
have
like it
been
sucked.
so much better. Like
Yeah.
we had this amazing thing, like this little game studio that like shot up from
Yeah.
nothing and became the biggest game studio in Latin America. And I still think that they didn't know what they had, and they let it all like just flame out
Well, from an
because
outside
of
perspective,
like
maybe it was a little bit of jealousy or resentment. You know, they had
maybe.
obviously worked on this
But
marketing
that's the
company.
thing, like it might be justifiable to feel like that if you're not also making like 85%
Right.
plus. of the profit, right?
Yeah,
Um,
so you'd think they'd love it. Yeah.
you would think they would be quite
Yeah.
happy, right? And would want more of that. That's what I've always never been able to justify. Like it would have
Hmm.
been less work for everybody and just made everybody much richer in general,
Yeah.
to just leave it and do nothing.
Or
I would have
expand
been
and
perfectly
yeah.
fine with it. I would probably still be working on it.
Yeah.
But I had to leave, and everybody else did also. And that was part of that's something that I don't know if it registered uh, as heavily in the KSP timeline as I feel it deserved to have, like, um, been like the a big turning of like the tide, so to speak. Everybody else walked away in the same day. I walked
Oh, it
away
was all in one
2
day.
months earlier, but um, I walked away like just after KSP 1.0 hit because I felt that the game was complete enough that I was fine leaving it as it was and saying like this is the game I made.
Yeah.
Um, and But the others weren't. They had their own ideas they wanted to put into the game, and this was the most shocking, the most like the biggest loss that we had. These guys were willing to put up with those working conditions to the point where they wouldn't leave until the game had the features they wanted to see. Like that's how much they loved the project.
Yeah.
You don't see that in I dare say in ever. Like you don't see that kind of thing in any games project. Like for most people, quite reasonably, it's a job.
Yeah.
For everybody in KSP, it was well more than a job. For me, I know that I don't know for the others what they would say, but for me, it was my identity.
Yeah.
Like I was the KSP guy, and that was me. And to be cut off from that was just terrible. It was like this all-consuming feeling of loss,
Yeah.
and to have to just walk away from it, and under these circumstances of like them, like they wanted nothing better than for me to walk away. Um,
Okay,
for
that's heartbreaking. It really is. That's really,
it
yeah.
was really really awful. And it's hard to talk about it even today because um,
I can
yeah, I
imagine.
don't know.
Yeah.
I still feel like to some degree that like I must have done something or that I somehow um like I don't know. I don't think I caused any of that. I just wanted to make a game
Yeah.
and I did.
Yeah.
And then we got more people that wanted to make the game to join in and we made it even better. And it just like it was on this positive feedback loop um, for like pretty much everything that counted, right? But for some reason the company didn't want that or didn't see it like that. I don't know. I just can't explain it.
If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And if you want to support me and my channel, you can do so through Patreon or by joining my channel here on YouTube, where you'll get members only exclusives like early access to new episodes, members only videos, and extras. Plus, you'll be helping me focus on getting my next guest and creating new content.